What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius, and boy, do we have a special guest. Riley Tejcek is in the house. What's up, Riley?
Hi, how are you, Darius?
So pumped to have you here. So excited. What's today? Today's Wednesday, man. What a week. How's your Wednesday going?
It's going really well. I'm in Lake Placid at the Olympic Training Center. We just got done with sliding today, so I took a couple monobob trips down the hill. I'm still in my practice uniform and just ready to talk to you today.
Oh my gosh. So listeners, you guys don't know this, but Riley is an Olympic hopeful. We're going to be talking all things Olympic, Miss Military, and then some. I can't wait. Riley, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're getting about 20 to 30,000 new listeners a month. And so for listeners who are new to the show, Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And Riley is now the short of passion or greatness. So that's why we asked her to be on the show. A lot of times people are coming on the show. Maybe there's someone whose book I read. We have a couple amazing authors coming on tomorrow that I've been hounding for like 2 years, and you guys will get to see who those are soon. And Riley, I had to hound her a little bit, but I saw her on social and I'm like, this is so interesting. And so you guys will know in a second. She's involved in our U.S. military, the United States military here in the Marine Corps, and she's an Olympic hopeful on part of Team USA for the bobsled team. So I was like, that is so fascinating. I am so interested in talking to her, and she was so gracious to schedule to be on the show. So welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here.
Yeah, I'm honored. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, the pleasure's ours. So look, really like the Greatness Machine, we love people that are overcoming hard things to be on the show. People that have done the undoable, and becoming an Olympic hopeful is definitely like I don't know, like how many people try out to be an Olympic athlete in your Winter Olympian. Is that correct?
Going for the Winter Olympics, yes. And if you look at it, percentage wise, there's less than 1% of athletes even get to this level, period, right? I was a Division I college athlete. That's very difficult. But then to go from college athletics to professional athletes and competing on Team USA is less than 1% of the 1%. So it's something that's very difficult to come by. It takes a lot. I've had a lot of hardships, a lot of hard times trying to navigate this lifestyle, but so honored and blessed to have just turned 27 and, be here competing for Team USA across the world and representing my country as a Marine and as an Olympic hopeful.
That's so cool. So I'm going to give you a formal bio. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I can't help myself. I'm feeling called to do so. So Riley is the United States Marine Corps captain. She graduated D1 scholarship from GW, or George Washington University, for those of you that don't know what I just said. And Team USA bobsled pilot, crowned Miss Military 2023. And her biggest accomplishment was she was Lingo game show winner with her mom. And we'll be talking a little bit about that on the show. But I would love, Riley, first of all, like going from softball to bobsled, like super random, but like, were you like a bobsledder when you were a kid? I mean, I'd love to hear your origin story. We love origin stories here at the Greatness Machine. Give us some of the origin story. How did you get to where you got to? You didn't just end up on Team USA bobsledding. I'm assuming that there was a pretty cool story here, but give us some of the origin story.
Absolutely. So the origin story is going to take all the way back to my parents. So my father was a professional baseball player, and my mom was extremely athletic. Mom, I threw that in there for you, but also extremely intelligent and brilliant, and worked her way from being dirt poor with nothing to academic scholarships her whole life. And so I was raised to be an athlete, but also train and be the best I could be academically. I wanted to be a college softball player my whole life, following in my dad's footsteps. I end up accepting a Division I softball scholarship to George Washington, which is really then where the bobsled connection began. Because there's one jersey that's retired at George Washington University on the softball team, which is a woman by the name of Alana Myers-Taylor, who's one of the most decorated bobsledders in the world. And she actually and I are still competing here together right now. So I get to campus and I am figuring out, what I want to do with my life as an 18-year-old. I met a Marine recruiter, and we'll get into that later, and I end up pursuing the Marine Corps, but also was able to work up to be I say captain, that's why I laugh, in the leadership positions in the softball team. And in 2018, which was an Winter Olympic year in Pyeongchang, Alana won silver. And her husband, and her break woman came to George Washington University to basically, for morale, give a speech, right? The university invited her to show off her silver medal to all of us. And I presented her an award based off of the softball program. And I hit my teammate next to me and I was like, wow, in another life, like I would be a bobsledder, but I'm already so focused on the Marine Corps. Like that is my goal, to be a female Marine and a female Marine officer at that. So that's where that origin actually kind of began, is when I saw her and I was so fascinated by her story. I started following her more closely on social media, but it's really ironic how the Lord works. I'm a very strong Christian, so where I got to where I am now is because of the Lord and his guidance. But he planted that seed that day in 2018, that now in 2024, I look back and I'm like, if I had never met her and in those contexts and in that way of life, I would have never ended up here. So quickly fast forward a couple more years, the Marine Corps takes a lot, over a year of training. I got to San Diego, was my first duty station. And again, following Alana, I saw that bobsled was having a combine, like a tryout online, because it was COVID. And I was kind of trying to look for something myself of, hey, what am I training for now that college athletics are done? Now that I've gotten my first duty station, I prayed on it. I became bold and courageous, which is what we're called to do. And I basically tried out, and less than 4 years later, here I am sitting at the Olympic Training Center. I've competed in 2 world championships and trying to make history of being the first female Marine in the Olympics.
That's crazy. So you were 18 when you met her? Is that correct?
It was 2018. I would have been math.
Yeah,
around
2018.
2021.
Yeah. So you're in your early 20s. Mm-hmm. You have a family that has a strong sports background. Mm-hmm. So your mom's athletic. Your dad, you said he was a professional baseball player. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Did he play minor leagues, or did he actually get pulled up to the big leagues?
So he played AAA through the minors, got to AAA, was about to get called up, strike happened, all this kind of stuff. Never fully made it, but played with big names, Ken Griffey Jr., all the things. So
that's cool.
I remember as a kid, people would send him his baseball cards. So I always grew up thinking my dad was really cool.
Yeah, your dad was really cool. That's like, I'm not trying to underestimate a AAA baseball player. That's super hard. I have a friend I grew up with who, he was a USA. Well, this meant something then. USA like national, like all American in high school, was a Division I at UCLA, home run champion for the Pac-10s. He ended up getting drafted by the Mets, and he like barely made it to the big. And this guy was like one of the like it is so hard to make the big mm-hmm. leagues. Like it's so like to make AAA is insane. That's mm-hmm. really, really hard that your dad did that. So you have obviously a very, very athletic family. You grew up playing softball, GW's Division I, so you're playing D1 mm-hmm. Softball. And like, how does like the person that like motivated you, did she grow up bobs? How did she end up doing bobsled sledding? Because I actually have kind of an interesting story around a friend of mine who did something similar to what you're trying to do. You actually have made it farther than he has, but he was a guy that played football for McGill University in Canada, like which is like that's kind of like the UPenn. It's like a really good. It's a very fancy school in Canada, and he ends up getting a job on Wall Street for Citibank in their investment banking division, and gets gains like 20 pounds, and he's like an athlete. So he's like tubby and like out of shape, and he's like 24, and he's like, screw this. And so he ends up like building like a decision matrix and decides that he wants to become a like speed skater for Team Canada. And he like literally like doesn't even know how to skate. So he doesn't even know how to skate. And he ends up going to this place called, I think they called the Oval,
Yeah.
and up in Calgary,
Mm-hmm.
and becomes the 19th fastest short speed skater in Canada, almost makes the Olympic team there. So like the guy had no background in it, and he's one of my good friend's brothers, and I brought him to San Francisco. He did a TED talk about this, like, but he didn't, like he was an Olympic hopeful, but he didn't quite get there. But I would like, how does one decide like, yeah, that's cool. Like I'm gonna go like this woman I meet, God works in mysterious ways. You meet this person, but like, how did you think like, oh, like I should go become an Olympian in a sport like that? That's it's so strange thing to think about.
Yeah, I don't think my mindset ever really went there. My mindset and something, and you talked about this as the topic of your podcast is achieving greatness. And all I want to do is be great in any and everything that I do. And I'm somebody that I want to do as many things as possible and put myself in situations that are hard. I want to take risks. I want to be bold. I want to do something that I never thought would be possible. And the goal wasn't, oh, I'm going to become an Olympian. The idea was, hey, I need to push myself and I need to do something that scares me and intimidates me and something that's going to be hard. And this is all of the above. Going 90 miles an hour down a track, doing something I've never done before in my early mid-20s. This is going to challenge me and make me better. Of course, the end goal is like get good at this and go to the Olympics. But in my head, I was like, how can I put myself in hard positions to be the best version of me that I possibly can to achieve greatness and see what can come out of this? What can I learn about myself through putting myself through trials and adversity of something that majority of people would never even walk into in their life? And so I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, and I'm a little bit of I want to do things that people never thought were possible and see how I stack up against the rest.
I love that. So, all right. So walk me through. You meet this person. She's a bobsledder. She also does softball. So you're like, there's a connection there. And how do you? Then you're like, oh, that looks interesting and hard. I'm gonna go do that. How old were you when this happened? You're now 27. You're a few years out of college. Like, how long ago were you like, I'm gonna go try that? Like, I don't even understand like how. So I mean, I just said a moment ago, my buddy literally shows up at the Oval, doesn't know how to skate. He has a video of it. You're watching this guy who can't even put on skates barely, who ends up becoming almost an Olympian speed skater, and it was like a ton of work to do it. But was that kind of the same thing for you? And bobsledding, by the way, is like so random. It's like it's not like you have to go somewhere specific where they do bobsledding to even try it. You can't just like go out into a skating rink and try it. So walk us through that story. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, I was 23 years old. I was a year out from college athletics, and I felt like I hadn't peaked yet. I felt like mentally, physically, and emotionally, I was learning so much about myself as an athlete. And I was just like, this can't be it. And despite what everyone was saying about females not really having a place in the professional sport realm, I kind of wanted to prove that wrong. And so what ended up happening was I'm sitting in my office in California, and like I said, I needed to be challenged. I needed to do something that was hard. And I saw that bobsled was having an online combine. And at first I was like, well, this just gives me something to train for at the very least, right? Hey, like a NFL combine, they're going to test you on sprints, jumps, power cleans, squats, medicine ball throws, like all these things. And so it gave me something to train for, which is essentially what I was looking for. And I took a risk. I submitted a video, and they ended up coming back and was like, hey, you possess, like, you check the boxes initially. Do you want to come out to Park City, Utah and try this sport? Can you afford to take 2 weeks off of work and come and try this? And it was very similar. You get to Park City, you have to pay to get there. You pay to rent equipment. You walk the track, and they're like, all right, are you ready to go? Sink or swim. We're going to see, do you have what it takes? Do you not? Do you like this? Do you not? A lot of people, it's a very rough, violent, intense sport. A lot of people don't like that. You're not going to get rich off of this. Actually, we lose money. We're living under the poverty line as athletes, honestly. And you're having to give up time and stuff when you're supposed to be in your early 20s, setting yourself up for success in a career. So there's a lot of sacrifices and stuff that was required of it. And essentially, I, again, continued to pass the eye test. I was doing good enough. I was retaining information. And then I showed some promise and continued onwards. And I had a lot of support behind me with my family in the Marine Corps, and ultimately just felt like God really opened up a path that it was very easy to walk into. But again, like you said, it's very random. Well, winter sports are very random in the United States. We don't see everyday people playing, or ski jumping, or, mogul skiing, or, half pipe snowboarding to the extent that some people are. These are all very niche sports that are done in specific locations. And so bobsled is one where, because of the G forces and how fast you're going, you don't really get involved until later in life anyways. It's not safe to send a 10-year-old down the track with 5 G forces, 40 G forces if you crash, head, neck, and injuries that come along with it.
Yeah, I'm not letting my 10-year-old do that. It's not happening.
Exactly.
Right. So that makes sense. I already thought about that. So let's talk about combine. Obviously NFL combine, they're doing, lifting weights and running and jumping, and, they're looking for these like quantitative skill sets to say like, hey, if this person has this vert and they can run this fast and they're this strong and they're for this position, they check enough boxes where, like, if they're athletic enough, we can kind of train them for skill, right? And obviously they've been playing football. I'm assuming that the pool of people trying out to be a bobsledder is probably less than that of an NFL like combine. Like how many? But I'm sure it's still very competitive. Like how many people try out are trying out at the Winter Olympic combine for a bobsled, Team USA for bobsled? Like,
I don't know the exact number because a lot of them don't even make it to get an invitation. Oh, okay. So a lot of people will submit videos and stuff like that, and not everyone gets contacted. So I'm not privy to that information. Our recruiting staff would know that more. But I could say that, like, when I first showed up in Utah, I think maybe there was 20 of us. And to this day, I think only 2 or 3 of us have continued on in the sport. So it's aggressive.
What do you think? So when you start thinking of yourself as an athlete and as what do you think, what was it about you and maybe the 2 other folks that we're talking about compared to the 17 others that didn't make it? What was the thing that stood out for you in that process?
A couple things. One, I mean, you're asking 22, 23-year-olds that are dirt poor, that just got out of college, to be able to finance a sport that could, in year 1, cost them $10,000. There's a massive financial barrier and living barrier of the future. And we're not all dum-dums, right? A lot of us, we all were Division I for the most part, college athletes that came in that thought that, sports was over. We're trying to get our feet under us, get a home. And this sport is saying, hey, 9 months out of the year, I need you to be traveling all different places. I need you to get your bell rung and get burned on ice and be able to pay. One season can cost up to $40,000 when you do a full circuit. And oh, by the way, it's really hard to support a family, a relationship, kids, like all of these things. Like, you need to be all into your sport. And so I think that's a massive barrier in and of itself. It's a massive barrier why a lot of athletes don't stay in as long either, because you have to be able to make a living for yourself. And this is not going to do it for you. 2, I think the other thing is the grit that it takes from the sport. The sport literally beats you up. I mean, my whole body is black and blue to the point where I was wearing a short sleeve shirt and I was in a supermarket and a woman pulled me aside asking if I was being abused. Because and it's like one, I'm super glad, shout out to that lady, because we need more people like that. But 2, like, because my arms are bruised and my legs, and I'm like, no, that's from a 400-pound bobsled, and the 400-pound bobsled is going to beat my behind every single time that I interact and engage or do something wrong with it.
So, God, there's so many questions. All right, first of all, it's pretty funny, but I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. When you say like the bobsled's beating you up, like, let's take a step back. For listeners who have not seen like Cool Runnings or have you seen the movie Cool Runnings?
Of course.
Okay, I don't know. You're young enough where it's possible you haven't. I mean, it is a sport you're in though. So that's the one that for people that don't know, there was a Jamaican bobsled team that made the Olympics, and it's like a Disney movie from like 20 years ago. So like tell people what bobsledding is for people that are living under a rock that don't know what it is, and then talk about it. I'd love to hear like what is bobsledding for people that don't know, and then B, tell us about the first time you went into a bobsled. Like, what was that like?
Okay. Yeah. So, bobsled for dummies 101. Essentially, you are on a top of an ice mountain hill and you're going down in a sled, and there's different amounts of people depending on the discipline. So for women, you have mono, one person, just the pilot, and two women, pilot, brakeman. Men, you have two man, pilot, brakeman, and four man, pilot, three brakemen, totaling of four. And you're basically navigating up to, between either a 400 to 600 pound sled that's full of fiberglass on blades down an ice slope that are all different. So every single track in the world is completely different. So you have to memorize them and navigate to be as fast as possible, but also have as least amount of control to be able to not create too much friction in the ice, because sometimes races can be won by hundredths of a second. In a race, you have two heats. It's a total combined time. And whoever has the whoever has the fastest combined time is the winner.
So they add the two. So hold on, let's go back to, so right now when you're doing this, it's you and one other person. Is that correct?
So there's two disciplines. So I'm a pilot. So I do mono, which is just me. And I do two women, which is me and a partner.
Okay. So when you say brakeman, what does that mean?
That's the position. So like in football, there's like a quarterback, a running back. There's a pilot and a brakeman. And the brakeman is the person who is controlling the brakes at the end.
Okay. So the pilot is, and regardless of it, whether there's one, two, or more folks in a bobsled, there's always one pilot. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the pilot's job is to split. There's like a steering wheel, I'm assuming, on these things?
There's not. There's actually two, essentially they're called D-rings. They look like carabiners attached to bungees that when I pull, rotates the front axle.
So you're pulling it, and the front axle are what, two like blades essentially?
Yes.
So you're kind of steering the sled on this.
Correct.
And again, when we're talking about like a bobsled course, is it, again, I'm going to just try to dumb this down for people that, and myself mostly, is this like being on like a water slide? Like when you're like a water slide that's made of ice on a sled?
Yeah, but there'll be walls that are 14, 17 feet high that you're almost at the roof on, and fascinating. So unlike a water slide where you kind of are staying low, we're breaking laws of like gravity and like getting all the way up there with 4 to 5 G's with pressure holding us up at extreme heights at extreme speeds. And
when we say extreme speeds, what type of speed? What's like an average speed? What's the highest speed you've gotten up to?
It's average. The highest speed that I've gone is around 100 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour. Men, 4 men can get up to 100 miles an hour.
Whoa. Did you say 90 miles an hour? Like 90? 90.
Mm-hmm.
So 90 miles an hour in a 600 pound, 400 pound fiberglass sled on a wall 14 feet high that's like curved, right? So you can slide up the wall and then slide. So you're on and how long are these tracks? How long is a typical run for you?
Yeah, I would say roughly around a minute on average. Kind of depends on where you go, a little over a mile track, but every single track is made completely different with completely different curves and the way corners are cut and angles of droppage, all of it to just really mess you up.
Oh my gosh, that sounds that like I've seen bobsledding before. I've never actually thought about what it's like to do it till talking. This is crazy. So the best part of this whole story is you literally, like, it's not like you grew up doing this. You're like, hey, I'm going to go try this like insane sport. And you did it. And so like, what is, I don't want to be morbid here, but is there like, do a lot of people die doing this?
No, but people get fairly injured. Unfortunately, we just had an incident about a month ago where we had an individual break his femur, his pelvis, and had so much internal bleeding that his heart did stop momentarily and had to be revived and back. We've had people have spinal injuries, massive head injuries, concussions, and haven't been able to go. Third degree ice burns and having to get skin grafts and such stuff as that. So when you're going that fast at high speeds, there's always a very inherent risk of what's coming with it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, and it's not, and like, I mean, you're not buckled in or anything, right? You're just like
No.
so that because so basically when you start, I'd love the audience to understand this because I do know a little bit. Like I'm about as I know 1% more than everybody else just because I've seen it. I've been around long enough. So you basically like, how do you get started, and then you jump in. To walk us through like what the start of a race looks like.
Yeah, so I'll go through a 2-woman. I'm on a side, so I'm actually the sled's in front of me, I'm on the left-hand side, and my brake woman is in the back. We say a cadence of timing to hit the sled because it's not moving. At the same time, sprint between 30 and 40 meters to get it going as fast as possible. Jump in. I'm crouched as low as possible, navigating and driving. The brake woman is completely folded in half to be as aerodynamic as possible. I navigate, drive the whole track. Once we cross the finish line, I signal the brake woman. They sit up, pull the brakes, and stop us at the end of the dock.
Wow. And so the first time you ever did this, were you like doing simulators before you actually did it? Or did you like literally they're like, hey, like sink or swim or like sliders.
Yeah, sink or swim, figure it out. Mm-hmm.
So you basically like, yeah, here, hop in, give it a run. Like,
yep.
And what was that? Well, tell us what the first time was like. I'd love to hear the story.
Terrifying. It was terrifying. I mean, I think everyone's looking at like nose goes on who wants to go first. Like, are we going to die? Like, what in the world did I just get myself involved in? Like, is my will up to date? Because I'm only 23. So, did I call my parents before this and tell them, goodbye? But it was incredible. I remember being so anxious, but not showing it. And crossing the finish line and just screaming, like woohooing, like, yes, like, woo, like that was awesome. Like the speed, I mean, I ping ponged my whole way down, but I was like, okay, like I get it. Okay. Now I know. And then ever since then, it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life. Also sometimes the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And this sport has made me want to quit several times because I've injured myself. I've injured people I've cared and I loved about. I blacked out completely and had no idea where I was when I woke up. Right. So there's a little bit of that to it too. But overall, if you're a adrenaline junkie like me, I love jumping out of planes, going fast, shooting guns, all that kind of stuff, driving a track that fast and trying to be so perfect and having things come at you just like at rapid speed is absolutely exhilarating and incredible.
So, tell me a little bit about this because I'm not an adrenaline junkie, but like I appreciate adrenaline. Like prior to doing this, were you like give us some of the crazy stuff you've done prior to like jumping into a freaking bobsled?
Yeah, I guess skydiving's an easy one. Whitewater rafting. I was 19 and I picked up my belongings and moved to Kyrgyzstan to just study Russian and do something that was challenging and hard. Joined the military, went to officer candidate school, never shot a weapon in my life and became really proficient at weapons and being able to issue out military order and simulations of combat. I'm trying to like,
those are some pretty good ones. You're actually making me realize that I might be an adrenaline junkie because I've done a few of those things and I like them all a lot. Like a lot. Like I like shooting guns and I've not shot that many guns, but every time I have, I'm like, oh, I should buy a gun. And I did whitewater rafting and it was like a class 4 and I was like, that was awesome. And I wanted, and so, Riley, you might be motivating me to become a competitor.
Yeah. There you go.
Now I was a D1 athlete too. So we do have that in common. I was a wrestler in college, but, all right. So I have a question because when you were talking about it earlier on the show and I didn't know quite I didn't actually understand what you were saying. So I'd love for you to explain when you were saying like G4, G5, what is like for the non-knowing, myself being one of them, what does that mean when you're going on a bobsled and G-force? I know we're talking about G-force, but what does G4 mean versus G5? When you say you blacked out, I'm assuming the G-force knocked you out. Maybe I'm thinking that wrong, but yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the best way that I can describe it, if anyone's seen the new Top Gun movies, and the pilots, when they're going and they're going very fast and they're hitting a certain altitude, there's that G force pressure that, you know, kind of makes your face, you know, go back and you're just kind of shaking and it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's the force of which you're going at a certain speed that your body isn't used to. So the different things happen. Your brain's moving around a certain amount, right? And you're trying to like hold it together. So that's what I mean by that. When you're experiencing 4 to 5 Gs, like that is very similar to fighter pilots of what they experience when they're going at those speeds. So when I blacked out from crashing and hitting my head so hard at those speeds.
Oh my gosh. So did you get a concussion when that happened?
Yeah.
Oh man. How many concussions have you had?
How many I've had officially, or
give me official. Give me official, because I know how it works. Like you'll get your bell rung, and you're like, I think I'm okay, and then you have a headache for like 3 days. But like,
yeah, you throw up.
Yeah, that's by the way, that's a concussion.
I would say officially, I think there's been 2 or 3.
Okay.
That were pretty significant. But there's times when we call it sled head, and that every time after you slide, you're like, I need people not to talk to me right now because I'm not computing things at a quick rate and none of what I'm saying is making sense, or I'm blanking on trying to come up with words and stuff too.
That sounds like so I've had 3 official concussions. I played rugby in college too, and so I got my first 2 concussions playing rugby, and so for people that are not familiar with outside of hearing about it in football, like a concussion is when you essentially is a contusion to your brain. So your brain gets like a bruise, right? And you get and depending on what part of the brain, and maybe you know better than I do, but this is my understanding of it. Mm-hmm. Depending on what part of the brain will depend on how it reacts. So I remember when I had one, my second one was the worst one. Like I couldn't even lift like a 5-pound dumbbell for like 4 months. And I was sitting in calculus class in college, and I was literally seeing math, and I couldn't understand what the professor was saying. And it was so because my brain was like kind of scrambly, right? So when you've had them, I just stopped playing rugby because of it. And then I've had a couple more where like got in fights and stuff. But once you get one, it's easy to get the next one. That's the thing about concussions. It's way easier because what I understand, and I don't know if you know the information on this, is that your brain is essentially, think of a brain as like a Jello mold, and it's attached to there's like a piece of like I don't know what it is, like skin or something that's essentially attaches it to the skull, and that tears. And when that tears, it moves around more freely. And that like after your first concussion, it's really like it can slam up against your skull, which is why you get it so much easier the second time. Do you know much about this?
Yeah. I know what we studied, and what they say to look out for, and yeah, very similar. It's like your brain just being jolted very fast, and so hitting it up against your skull, and again, like you said, where depending on where you hit your head or where the trauma comes from, it's like a severe whiplash, right? So some people have ever felt that, right? And so you're just off balance for a while, and it takes more time for your brain to calculate and figure out what's going on and how to get back to normal.
So I'm going to go to more fun topics around. So you're an Olympic hopeful. You had said when you started this, there's 20 of you in your group, and now there's a couple of you left. What is it when we say Olympic hopeful versus becoming an official Olympian? What does that mean? Like Olympics, we're talking about the Winter Olympics 2026. Right now, it's the spring of 2024. Walk us through what needs to happen in order for you to be able to get an Olympic tattoo on your arm.
Like a lot of my teammates. So the Olympics are in 2026 in February. So we're actually just shy of 2 years out from the games. Essentially the United States, because we're one of the best countries, shocker,
of course,
in most skilled athletics. It's very, very difficult even to make the team of Team USA. And so once you get onto the team, there's 5 of us women pilots that are very, very competitive, and we're fighting for top 3 spots. So as long as everything stays its course, we will be sending 3 women's teams to the Olympics. What's unfortunate is that's because of Olympic rule. For example, all 5 of us were top 25 in the world. However, based off of the Olympic rules, due to how many countries they want to be involved, they will have countries that are lower ranked in because they don't want it to be a domination of the United States or Germany or Canada or whoever, which is very unfortunate as well. So generally the Olympics are top 25 in that sport. However, there's rules per how many per country. So essentially what has to happen between now and then is I have to be USA 1, 2, or 3 going into the Olympics the month prior when they name the team in January of 2026.
That sounds like the electoral system, like you get like, but what's funny is I have I knew a woman who played basketball at Villanova that used to work for one of the companies I owned. And so she was, played D1 B-ball, she was solid, but she was Croatian. So she went in, and I know a lot of people have done this who are like Division I athletes. They have heritage in another country that has lower representation. Now, Croatia basketball is actually pretty tough. It's like probably not as tough as US, but it's like legit. And she ended up making Team Croatia. She was an Olympian there. So, but man, like, if you're like bobsled team in Jamaica, which is, they made a funny movie about it. It's a true story. It's probably a lot easier to become get on the bobsled team there than Team USA, to your point. So
exactly.
Yeah. Right. So I know you're Czech, right? So maybe how's the team Czechoslovakia? Is that like a,
they have a team. And I've said this, and people have talked all the time. I'm like, it's USA or bust. Like being a Marine and representing,
right.
I've been to 2 world championships so far, which is very similar to the Olympic format. It's almost identical. But if I'm not representing USA, I'm not going, and I will be the biggest cheerleader for my teammates on the side.
All right, you're a patriot. And so let's talk, like, I'm going to go into the nitty gritty. So you and your other 4 teammates are top 25 in the world. Where'd you land on that? What number were you?
It depends on the discipline.
Okay.
Right. So there's a ranking for 2 women. There's a ranking for monobob, and then there's a combined ranking. I believe in 2 women, I'm 22, maybe.
Nice.
Somewhere around there. We still have this one more race. So that will also, hopefully, with a good finish that I'm expecting on my home track, move us up a little bit.
All right. So is that are you like, hey, I'm just going to go for both of them, whether it's 2% or solo mono? You're like, I don't care. I'm going to fight for either of those opportunities. Tell us, like, where do you think you have the highest chance of succeeding?
So you have to do both.
Okay.
There's no one or the other. There's no specialization.
Oh. So it's
men and women.
So 3 teams of 2, or is it 3? How many people total can make the Olympic squad out of the 5 of you? 3 total.
3 total pilots. So the 5 are the 5 pilots.
5 pilots. Got it.
There's several more brake women. Which is that second position. But of the pilots, there's 5 of us that are extremely competitive right now. And have competed all over the world this year. Is there like a stack rank? Do you guys know where you fall in the food chain? Are you like, I'm number 4, or I'm number 1, or I'm number 5? Yeah. And then it also changes in the middle of the season, right? Like we have someone right now that broke their foot a month ago. At the beginning of the season, I broke my foot. We have people like one of our best girls right now is on maternity leave. She's pregnant right now. So she'll be back, the following year. So technically there's going to be 6. And 2 of those 6 are almost 40 years old that have been in the Olympic Games 5 times already. So trying to compete, against people like that with a skill set is impossible. So Lana Myers-Taylor is still competing, for example. The silver medalist back in 2018. She won another silver. And so for Team USA, like last year at the Olympic Games, or 2 years ago at the Olympic Games in 2022, in the monobob event, we won gold and silver.
Oh,
that's
wow.
The kind of athletes that I'm competing against. Those 2 women are still here now. So what I'm trying to get at is people are like, oh, the Olympics, this, that, the other. I'm like, do you know how hard it is to get to the Olympics? Do you know how hard it is to get to even to Team USA? Like that is one of the hardest things to get to, period. The Olympics is even like, you have to be the best of the best of the best, because right now our USA 4, 5, 6 is beating half the squad that is at the Olympics right now from other countries.
Dang. I mean, you have me thinking about some stuff. I'm like, all right, look, like, I don't think you should try to like hurt your other teammates, because you got to win fair and square. But like, I think you could probably work some magic to get a couple of people pregnant, like. Like, I think you got to like go and like get some of the hubbies, like get them a little,
Yeah.
some good wine and some chocolate and like,
Yeah.
send
No,
them,
I get it.
you know what I
I
mean?
get it.
Like, I think that there's some strategery, Riley, that you should be thinking about. Like,
Yeah, shoot. Well, I will say this. I love my teammates, and to be honest, like they're some of my best friends. And honestly, all I want is the best to be represented in 26. So, I mean, that'd be really cool if it was me, but I would want it by an honest, fair competition. I want everybody, no babies, no injury, right? And we just duke it out to see who has the best chance to really make us successful.
Listen, you're a soldier. All is fair in love and war. Okay.
That's true.
So let's talk military. So I lost my notes here, but you're a captain in the, is that correct? You're a captain in the Marine Corps?
Yep. Captain of the Marine Corps.
Yeah. So talk us through that. So when did you join? Were you, did you start doing military like during college, after college? Like tell us a little bit about that.
So I never thought I would ever be in the military. That was never something that I ever thought I would end up doing because I never saw it. So I never saw a female other than I always joked G.I. Jane on TV. Right. Enter in the military, let alone the Marine Corps, which, you know, is known to be the most physically demanding branch that there is. So when I was 18, I was actually 18 this time, and I was stepping on a college campus in George Washington, I had met a Marine recruiter. Again, I think the Lord really led that and put that on my heart as something that I never knew I wanted to do, but something I was very passionate about. You know, he started talking about being able to be a servant leader my whole life, being able to travel the world, to work out for a living. I was like, yeah. And be a part of something where there's not a whole lot of women and be able to impact and make a difference. And so I was like, sign me up. And so I went to officer candidate school that summer. End up commissioning after graduating because you can't commission as an officer until after you get your college degree. So in 2019, I accepted my commission, and then have gone to the basic school for 7 months, end up getting the MOS, military occupational specialty of a logistics officer. So I became specialized in logistics and have been doing that ever since. I just promoted to the rank of captain, and then in 2 months from today, actually, I'm going to be deploying over to the Middle East, and I'm going to be working on logistical operations over there.
Where in the middle? Do you know where in the Middle East your job's going to be, or no?
Still kind of trying to figure that out, but I have some ideas of maybe where I'll be going.
I have a friend, Clay Martin, who was just on the show. We did 2 episodes actually. He was originally recon. He was a Marine reconnaissance, and then he ended up doing. He's a Green Beret after that. So we had, and he joined. He and I were similar age, so he joined in like the early 2000s, like right after 9/11. But yeah, there's no joke. Like right now, especially, it's, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and you know, our military is, you know, we're the strongest military power in the world, so we're kind of everywhere. Do you have military in your family, or is this something that was you by yourself wanted to become a Spartan?
Yeah, it was still more me by myself. Like I said, my parents were not involved. My grandfather was a Marine for maybe a year, but not something that he ever really talked about too much. So I would say we were a patriotic family for sure. Always had, you know, American flag up outside of our house, and was raised to be very respectful of our military and everything like that, but never was the conversation ever geared towards the military growing up. That, again, like I said, people were like, wait, you're going into the Marine Corps? Like, what? Like, no one really saw that coming.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to tell you this. So I had an assistant. She was hired out of what's now JP Morgan or Chase Bank, but she was a reservist for Air Force. And she was Division I field hockey. And so I always said, like, if you want to hire the biggest badasses, like college athletes, and if you get them military combo, I'll throw an Olympian in there too, or Olympic hopeful, excuse me. then you're really crushing life. So I'm doing this. This has not happened before, Riley. I don't know what you're good at except the bobsled and military. But when you are done with that stuff and want to go, if you ever want to go into business, like, you have a standing job offer from me, okay? And I do some really cool stuff in business. So just know that, like, you like, I have a combine, and it's my combine goes like this. Did they play D1 sports or D2 sports? Were they in the military? And did they make any sort of Team USA team?
Wait, there we go. There's not very many of us, so I don't know how long your staffing is.
It's
the line with me.
It's
so.
They normally don't check all three, but if they check even one or two, like they move up in the rank. So so like you last but not least, Miss Military 2023. I've never even heard of this. Tell us what this is.
Yeah, this was another thing. Like I said, I like to do things that are hard, that are challenging, that you don't really expect. This was definitely one of them. I was reached out to. I try to be very present on social media. I'm only on Instagram, and I was reached out to. It was like, hey, we're having this pageant. It's geared toward active duty and veterans. You have to have served in the military to some extent, men and women, and we think that you would be a really good fit if you're interested. Again, laughing, thinking it's spam. I'm like, I've never been a pageant in my life. Like, at the time, I think I was 25, 26. And I'm like, I've never walked a runway. I mean, I can walk in heels, don't get me wrong, but I wear military boots and ice spikes majority of my time. And it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? Like, why not? Like, why not share what I do with bobsled and the Marine Corps? And then a big part of this pageant was community service, which, being a Christian and all this kind of stuff, I've been very, very involved with my local church. And in San Diego, did a lot of outreach with an orphanage in Mexico, and working with the homeless down in San Diego. So I love that it was geared towards the service component, not just serving your country, but service of community service, giving back to veterans, etc. So I just went for it. I got my first ever spray tan. That was a time. I got to, wear a fun dress, and at the talent portion, walk out my bobsled uniform and show a video of my ESPN race. And, I was like, good luck beating me in that talent, right? I was like, okay, at least I got one. Like, I know I'm going to win on this one. And then we were able to talk more about some of our ideas and thoughts of making the military better. So they would ask us questions. We talked about our community service, and how we were giving back to veterans and that kind of stuff. And then I ended up winning, which was crazy. I definitely wasn't expecting it. And it definitely wasn't a massive pageant by any means. I know now Miss America is in the Air Force and stuff. So it wasn't anything like that by any means. But it was just something that I did that was really fun, that has opened up a lot of doors and opportunity to showcase to young women, especially, little girls, of like, hey, I might look like a princess, but let me show you what I do. I'm also a professional athlete, and I'm a captain in the Marine Corps. And that is really powerful to hopefully show more women what's possible, and something that they could see themselves doing as well, because they've met me.
I love that. So last but not least, before we go to our greatness question, you mentioned earlier that you and your mom were on the game show Lingo. I don't know what this is. I'm not a big TV watcher, but Lingo game show winner. What does that mean? What is that like on like network TV? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, love Instagram. I was trying to figure out how to pay for my season. That first year I got on the national team in the World Cup. And like I said earlier, I knew the season was going to cost me about $40,000, and I had to come up with all of that money. And I was very worried about how I was going to make ends meet. And I was reached out to by a casting producer, which was insane. And I, again, thought it was a joke. And they're like, hey, there's this new TV show. We're searching for people, you being in the military and, doing sport. I think you would be someone that, people would like to watch on TV. And I'm like, okay. And so, it is a game of two. So of course I picked my beautiful, intelligent mother, and it's very similar to Wordle. If you played Wordle, do you know what Wordle is?
I know what Wordle is, yeah.
So imagine Wordle without being given the first letter, and you're timed with 10 seconds and you have a partner. So it's very similar to that. And so it was actually very difficult. Like, it took a lot of brain power and hours of training and practice. And anyways, my mom and I got selected. We went on the show, and we ended up winning. And never did I ever think that would happen. And that money actually went directly into covering and funding my full season that year. So it was like the biggest blessing in the world. It's still streaming actually on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Lingo, like bingo with an L. Episode 7, RuPaul is the host. Some people know who RuPaul is.
Yeah. Work it.
Yeah. And now me and my family are about to go on another TV show here soon. I can't say just yet, but yeah, I love doing TV, and I hope I could do it way more. But we'll see.
Is it?
I'm a little busy right now.
Okay, wink twice if it's Family Feud. Oh wait, no.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll see. I don't know. Wink once. Oh man, Riley, so much fun having you on the show. I'd love if we could end the show with the greatness question. But before we go there, if people want to learn more about you, obviously they can go to Paramount Plus and check out Lingo episode 7 with RuPaul to see you and your mom. I will be watching that with my kids tonight. But before we go and end, if people want to learn more, they want to support you in some way, how might they connect with you to do that?
Absolutely. So I'm only on Instagram, despite all the Riley Tejceks on Facebook and TikTok. That is not me. You can find me at Instagram at riley.tejak. I put everything up on there, my journey. We have races on ESPN coming up this weekend that you definitely don't want to miss. And you can connect with me that way. I actually always respond to my direct messages as long as they're appropriate. And I do have some incredible sponsors. I'll just say a quick shout out, but clothing, apparel, curves, and combat boots. For fuel, Jocko Fuel is how I get my protein and supplements. Bravo Sierra is a great military brand that has hygienic products. And lastly, Incrediwear, which is the best tools for recovery. All of them have been the reason why I'm able to sit here, compete for Team USA, and keep going. So shout out to you guys. You guys are the best. And please connect with me if you want, or you have any questions, or maybe you watch this and you want to do bobsled. I am your girl.
Awesome. And you know what? You just reminded me. I saw you through Jocko's Instagram. That's how I can.
Nice.
Yeah, I follow his stuff. So you just triggered my memory. I'm like, oh, that is how you were on his Instagram, and I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. So we can thank Jocko Willick for that. All right.
Thank you, Jocko.
Thanks, Jocko. Good work, buddy. All right, we're gonna go to the greatness question. So you ready, Riley? Ready for the greatness question? All right, let's do it. So what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Mm-hmm. Self-doubt. Self-doubt is the number one barrier. I don't think of just me. I think of everybody. I think so many times I try to explain to people, you have a desire in your heart to do something. And for example, mine was pursuing the military and pursuing bobsled. And very quickly, my self-doubt was, am I good enough? Am I a good enough athlete to do this? I've never done the sport in my life. How am I going to do this? Or for the military, there's no women in the military. I don't look like maybe what a Marine might look like or sound like, right? And I, for a minute, stopped myself from walking into greatness and where I am now because of this self-doubt, because of what I thought this false perception was. So I always try to say, don't tell yourself no before someone else does. Take that step, go out there, try it. What's the worst case is going to happen? You're going to be right back to where you were in the first place. And that's truly how you walk in greatness and walk in your purpose, is by being bold, put yourself out there, stop telling yourself no, do something that's never been done before, and have the backing of people that are going to catch you if you fall, or be your biggest cheerleaders once you make it.
Riley Tejcek, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I'm so excited for your future and all the greatness that you're going to bring, whether it's as a future Olympian or thereafter. And the offer stands. When you get bored of all this bobsled military stuff, do not be shy. There is a really cool job offer that's waiting for you.
Thank you, Darius. This was awesome. Thanks so much. All
right. Thank you, guys. Everyone, go support Riley. Until next time, peace out. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.